Those of ye who've heard my stories thus far might be getting the impression that I be a strictly solitary sailor, a captain without a crew. Well, I like to put them ideas to rest. Allow me to introduce you to the crew of me brigantine, the Sea Stooges. She's no fumbled plunder, but by Calypso, it be a good time whenever we set sail. The tall, violent-looking one be Salt Squash, my first mate, main gunner, and the one who handles most of the business on these here ventures. The short, fat fellow be Pepper's Stretch, the deckhand and ship's cook. He don't talk much, but believe me when I tell ye, he makes a mean, grog-soaked splash tail. Now, on this day in particular, us three were out for just one thing. Gold, and lots of it. Squash scored us a bounty from the gold hoarders, hoping we'd bring 'em back the key to their vault. Now, you don't be needing me to tell you that we had other plans in mind. I mean, what sort of self-respecting pirate crew finds a key to a vault full of treasure and just hands it over? No. We'd be taking all that loot for ourselves, thank you very much. The only issue now, we're tracking it down, but with that golden wayfinder, it would be no issue at all. Our first stop were Liar's Backbone, which you might be remembering as Jim's place from before he passed. I launched out to get started, while Squash parked the ship and Stretch cooked down below. I dug up the first clue only to immediately be swarmed by a group of boneheads. Pirates who owed a debt to the gold hoarders before they died, if the rumors be true. A not so subtle reminder that I also need to pay off my own debt. Anyway, I returned to the ship, hopping onto the harpoons to grab what valuables them shambling skellies had left behind. Once them and Squash were aboard, I checked the wayfinder to get our next heading. Kraken's Fall would be our next stop. I shot Squash out this time, bringing the ship island side before hopping out myself, leaving it in Stretch's capable hands. Oh, I hate those sounds he makes. I found us a rowboat and a mostly empty treasure chest, while Squash found the next part of the map. Looks like the totem were buried on Sunken Grove. But with no X to speak of, we couldn't find exactly where just yet. So once more, we turned our eyes to the wayfinder and set off to the next island. We made it to Sharktooth Key, but it weren't exactly the smoothest of sailing. For the record, I blame Stretch. Stretch, shut up, I'm the captain. I did a wee bit of pest control, and Squash dug up the last piece of our map we'd be needing. It weren't the full X, but it were enough to be telling us where on the island to dig. After another band of debt skellies and an unfortunate run-in with a snake, we had the key in our hands and a destination set. Mermaid's Hideaway. Squash brought the ship about to the island's western end, while I dealt with one of them pesky wandering captains. After that, it were time for the three of us to get to work. We had a vault to clear out. You could feel the excitement in the air as we descended. The gold hoarder vaults were a lucrative mark, and we were all eager to get our hands and hooks on their contents. Now don't be ridiculous, Stretch. Knocking won't help. Oh, Lord, there'd be a lot of gold. Start stuffing your pockets, you blackguards! We had our roles fairly well set. Squash and Stretch would drop the chest down and carry him just outside the vault, while I worked to crack the code and reveal the big prize. The chest of ancient tributes. Squash found one of them medallions, allowing me to start on my work. The first sigil were a chest, and that were all I needed to know. You see, the thing about these here ancient vaults, the last pillar will always be the key to finding the combination. Just find the first pillar's sigil and work back from there. The chest, the ancient tributes, was ours, but we still had to be quick. That door would be closing any minute now, and there was still plenty of loot up above. It weren't too much longer before them ancient safeguards did their job. Stretch made it out before the door could shut. When Squash and I were locked in, the chamber began to flood. So, naturally, we started to pocket as much loose gold off the ground as we could before going to greet the ferryman. Soon as we were back from the grave, we were back to work, loading up all the loot onto the ship. It were a lengthy process, but with the haul we had, it were worth every second of carrying them boxes around. Our flag weren't quite grade 5 though, so I decided to scar us just a tad more booty. Them skeleton Hoarders from the captain were still burning a hole in me pocket after all. Now, it were a riddle map, but so long as I don't need to be finding no giant bird statues, we should be fine. Oh! Ah, there we go. I brought the treasure back to the ship, but we still weren't quite grade 5. But Squash had a nice little solution to this issue. See, not too far to the north, there were a nice little sea fort, ripe for plundering. Now, I won't be boring you with all the details. Calypso knows I already babbled on enough about taking on the sea forts during the Festival of the Damned. But I can't stress enough just how convenient these things are. Quick, easy little stops to make to top off your emissary and practice your swordsmanship. That goes doubly so when you got a loyal crew at your side. Or at least part of one. Squash were helping me clear the thing while Stretch was, oh, right. Cooking again. Well, regardless, it didn't take much longer before the captain of the fort were slain, and we began to load up all that glorious treasure. Squash got right to harpooning the loot, while I did a quick run for supplies, draining the fort for all she were worth. With a grade 5 emissary, and enough booty to make the ship ride low in the water, we went to hand it off to the sovereigns, basking in the fruits of our labor. Stretch kept on passing along our loot as Squash and I went to talk to Hugh. We claimed our emissary quest, dropped our flag, then put up a new one in its place. We were scamming him just a little, but to be fair, gold hoarders deserve to be scammed. Plus, if it be any sort of karma, a Reaper sloop did turn up before we could head out again. Now, in hindsight, they may have been after the bounty that had been nearby. But at the time, we decided the best course of action would be to open fire upon the scallywags. They fired back with their own guns, a lucky shot sending me over the side. The waves kept me from seeing too much of what were going on, but it sure didn't sound good. I had to watch, helpless, as the sloop crashed right up into the side of me ship before the merman came to help instead of Gwyneth, wherever the hell she were. One of them Reapers were aboard the ship when I were returned, but me blunderbuss made short work of him. When they came up on our backs, I decided to return their boarding action in kind, hopping off the Stooges and up onto their ship. I dropped their anchor once their cannons could do us no harm, and went below to defend any holes my crew could put in. But things took an unfortunate turn. When the man I'd killed returned, he had Calypso watching o'er him, and a lucky swipe of his sword sent me to the ferry. They were on the move again once I'd returned, having put a few holes in our side while I were away. But it were no matter. The crew were already working to patch her up. The fight went on to the wee hours of the morning, dodging and weaving, both sides staying just out of the other's cannon range, taking shots to ward off any attempts to close the distance. But something had to give, and we were determined to not let it be us. As the sun rose o'er the sea of thieves, the light of opportunity shone through the clouds of gunsmoke. Squash and Stretch were hitting their shots, and the sloop were on the perfect trajectory for me to perform another boarding action. I caught their ladder, dropped their anchor, and dispatched the man left unaware below deck. All while the crew kept the pressure high. I went to pilfer their supplies using their own crate, no less. There were more than enough wood to keep a ship going for a good long time. But here were my true prize. We were 1-to-1 on killing each other, and the stakes had never been higher. For him, anyway. His death marked the end for their ship. She were proper flooded, with none to patch her up, and I were still aboard to prevent them from trying. One of them returned from the ferry, too late to save the boat, but just in time to feel Stretch's wrath. How terrifying. You know, sometimes he keeps the legs of other pirates, and we never see them again. We don't know if they're in the food or not, and at this point we're too scared to ask. Anyway, we brought the Reaper's loot aboard, and plotted our course for the emissary quest. But before we could get to any of that, Stretch insisted that we make a quick stop to offload the fish he'd caught on our voyage. So we went to the North Star seapost to pay Suds and Sarek a little visit. He asked to be left there for a bit to fish in the oncoming storm, so me and Squash obliged as we went to dig up more chests. First up, Lonely Isle. I'll tell ya, small islands make for the best digs. You don't need to be running all about, wearing your peg leg down to your stump. Everything just be so close together. Anyway, I had to save Squash from more skellies. Aside from that, the dig were uneventful, and we sailed away from the island a few chests richer than before. Matter of fact, that be how most of the digs went. Uneventful, but we sail away with more riches than before. I'm certainly not complaining. It just don't be making for a super fascinating tale is all. We reached grade 5 once more on that second island and decided to hit the nearest outpost to cash in. The only problems occurred once we'd actually arrived at the outpost. Squash had partaken of the ship's grog, a bit too much of it, by the way, and Stretch were too busy fishing, leaving me to dock the brigantine and sell the loot, all on me lonesome. Believe you me, they got a reprimanding for it later, but I don't think they took it to heart. Anyway, once all were sold, we dropped the flag again, raising up a new one as we set off to collect even more treasure. To be honest, it were more of the same, really. Another vault heist, since the gold hoarders were daft enough to put everything we stole back in the same vault we stole it from. Another sea fort, and the last of the emissary maps. It were a successful voyage, but by Calypso, it were an exhausting one too. Especially when the idiots got bored and started playing Blunderbob tag. Well, regardless, at the end of the day, they may be idiots, but they be my idiots. So if ye be seeing the sea stooges on your horizons, be warned. It be crewed by the biggest idiots on the Sea of Thieves.